When I was younger, I loved this singer called Michael W. Smith. He's a Christian music artist, and he was my hero for a period of my life. You know, I listened to him constantly. I tried to imitate him singing, and I talked about him a good bit. I really looked up to this guy, and I wanted to go see him live someday. It's one thing to listen to him on a CD, but it would be 100 times better to see him in person. So he was on tour and he came to Northern Ireland, but I didn't know this at the time, and my family decided they would take the trip up to Belfast and go see him live. So they got me a babysitter and off they went. I didn't know where they were going at the time, but a few days later I found out and I was raging. I was probably the biggest fan in the family, and they left me at home. They said they thought I would have found it boring. But that's quite natural, isn't it, to want to see somebody we value and highly regard. I would love to go see some of the people I read about in church history. I'd love to see George Whitefield preach back in the 18th century, or to see Charles Spurgeon preach. I'm sure you also have your heroes whom you'd love to see one day, or maybe you already have seen. But looking on to Jesus is a vital part of every Christian's life. In fact, each Christian is saved because they, in faith, turned from their sin and looked to Jesus. And day by day, the Christian must look on to Jesus to do his will. For each Christian, we are given a promise that one day our faith will be turned to sight. One day we will see face to face our first love, our preeminent love, our chief love. One day we will be coram Deo, before the face of God, and to be before the Lord Jesus Christ and to see his face, to set our gaze upon the transcendent beauty of God and behold him without dying, without a shred of anxiety or without a shred of sorrow, but before him completely satisfied in him, who is the source of all rest and joy. That's our eternal destination. We human beings are inclined to marvel at what is beautiful. When we stand on top of a mountain and look around, we are often taken back by the beauty of creation. But to gaze upon the face of Jesus will be infinitely better, for he is beauty, and the source of all beauty. If creation can be this beautiful, how much more so is its creator? I could go on about the need to look on to Jesus, but instead here's a story of my friend Aidan, who looked on to Jesus, is looking on to Jesus, and hopes to look on to Jesus for all eternity.
Record button is on.
We're on the record.
No saying any of those words that you were saying last night, like.
We're on the record when you even bring it up, Jabers.
I can cut and paste, like.
I hope so.
So welcome on to Known by God. It is a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, so whereabouts at the minute that we're speaking over this?
I'm currently in Cancun, Mexico. A wee street called Cali Antelope. And Cali Antelope.
Nice.
So I'm a ways away from Dundrum. Anyway, so
So what are you doing there?
well, essentially, I'm going to the States now in a couple of weeks. Or sorry, I've been saying that for ages. I'm going to the States now on Saturday, and so I've had to quarantine in Mexico for 2 weeks before I've been able to get access into the country. So I couldn't go directly from Ireland or the UK into America, but I could stay in Mexico for 2 weeks.
Very good.
And then get in. So
yeah. So yeah. You haven't really been out of the house at all? You've just been stuck.
Except for getting some groceries and cups of coffee here and there. They all walk uh, around the place. That's really it. So,
Good stuff.
uh,
So whereabouts would you start your story? Where did you first encounter Jesus?
well, I first heard about a personal Jesus in a wee youth centre called Riot in Dundrum. Riot stands for Revival in Our Town. Um, Basically, there, Richie and the various staff that have come through have shared stories about Jesus, but they would often have American missionaries coming in and sharing their stories, their personal stories of how Jesus impacted their lives. And so I heard about a personal Jesus there. I grew up in the Catholic Church, which, for the most part, I am very thankful for, because there I learned lessons of the importance of being reverent and just in awe of the holiness and power of the Almighty God. But being brought up in that, um, there was something missing. I just didn't quite understand um, how God would even think about coming near us or interacting with His creation. So I always thought He was this far off, distant character in the sky that made us and then just left. Um, but yeah, I mean that was just my experience up until that point. So yeah. Anyway, so hearing all the stories from Riot, all the missionaries and such, got me thinking at a young, I mean, my early teens. During those years, I was out doing what most early teens do when they get mixed up in bad crowds, or um, yeah, I just ended up doing a bit of partying and drinking quite a bit. I smoked some weed. I was fighting quite a lot. I was trying to prove my identity all the time. I went to an all boys high school, so it was important to try and prove your strength in that environment,
Right.
But I tied my identity to that and how I was known. Uh, yeah, so I always then thought my identity was tied up in how do I, how do I earn it, you know,
Mm.
which of course was wrong. Where I heard the stories of Jesus in Riot, and the people that told me about no, your identity comes from who God says you are, and that's what kind of got me thinking anyway. So I remember in the middle of all this, kind of, I guess I'm maybe like 15 or 16 at this point. I can't remember exactly, but I'm lying in my bed and I'm watching videos of testimonies of people who've experienced Jesus, who now walk in personal relationship with Him. And at the end of one of these videos, this pastor guy comes on the screen in this fancy suit, and he says, "You can know Jesus personally as well. All if you really want to, you can pray this prayer with me." And really, it was a prayer of desperation. He said, "Jesus, if you're real, if all that I hear about you is true, I want you to show me."
Mm.
And so I lay in bed that night and I prayed that prayer really, and right there and then I felt the presence of God in that room, the personal touch of Jesus that these Americans had told me about. I'm lying in bed, I'm just weeping for no apparent reason other than I knew in that moment I was loved. I knew in that moment I was known, um, known by God. There's a wee name drop.
Nice. Nice.
Um, so yeah, man, that was really it. And from there, then I went down to my mentor, Richie. He's like the Paul to my Timothy. He's the kind of guy that seen me through a whole load of stuff. Um, and so I came to him and asked him, mate, what is this Jesus thing about? Because I had this experience the other night, and I don't know what to do with it. And then he very just calmly explained, mate, this faith thing isn't about your emotions. It's not about your feelings primarily. You have this good feeling, but like throughout life, your emotions are they're gonna dip and they're gonna soar high. And if you're basing your faith on that, then you're not really going to like you're not going to have that firm kind of grip on who Jesus is. And so the truth and the wonderful thing about Jesus is that he brings in this thing called joy, that's transcendent, that it's more solid than just happiness, right? And from there, we can actually rely on the fact that he's good. And his joy, he like drew it on like a page, you know, he drew the emotions and then he drew a line through and labeled it joy. He says that's what Jesus does. So, you know, it's about knowing who God is and basing it on that instead of your own personal understanding, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And so you would have been in school at this point, or
Yes, coming like towards the end of GCSEs, coming up into A levels, in and around that time.
and did that encounter with Jesus have an immediate effect on how you were walking in school, or how you were holding yourself?
I mean, in some instances, yes. My temper wasn't as I didn't have such a short fuse. It was a lot more peaceful, and let things happen as they happen.
Mm.
That was one of the most immediate things that I recognized.
Okay.
But you know, doing away with the partying and even just like lustful thinking, and chasing after girls and all that stuff. A lot of that I'm still learning, but a lot of the deep truths about that came later.
Yeah.
You know, so the Lord just came and he's walked me through that. You know, and he's walked me through that, and I'm still walking with him. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a journey, man.
And so you got to university. Me and you went to university together. I think everyone will have to do some catching up because we already know each other pretty well. Like after spending two years living with each other, it's pretty grueling. Like, but so moving on to university, talk a little bit about your experience, starting with first year. So that'll be 3 years ago.
3 years, like, holy smoke!
No, it's been a while.
Oh, it's crazy, man. Well, actually, so I'll start actually a wee bit before university.
Okay.
So I remember, so I took a gap year after high school. I took a gap year and I traveled around America for a bit, just by myself, with meeting up all these connections that I'd made through Riot over the years, which was really foundational for me, and recognizing what it is to have that foundation of just relying on God, because I just passed my driving test and then I went away. So I couldn't drive, I couldn't do any of this. So like the independence that I got, I like lost almost like immediately, which made me trust in God, and His people, and I kind of walk with them. So anyway, I come back from that experience and I'm in the university. I actually got an unconditional offer to study drama at McGee while I was in Kentucky at my mate Dwayne's house. And I said, sure, I like the area, it's a good old spot. So decided then, that's it, I didn't really care. I just knew I needed to get a degree, so I went for it. Little did I know by the journey that God would take me on through these years, and like just the joy it is. And so I remember the first sort of week I was praying for community, because I knew I needed that. I knew that I absolutely needed Christian community. So I joined the CU. God put two great Christian lads in my flat in first year, Mark and Sam. And so, yes, I was quite involved then at CU, playing worship and such. And then I played a bit of worship with you in first year. And then second year, you, me, and a few other lads were in the flat together. And then that's where our friendship started to blossom and started to grow. That's also where I started to recognize more about the importance of looking unto Jesus, of really just seeking Him first in all things. And now this past, it's been a journey. Just before I came to uni, a friend of mine shared Psalm 27:4, and it's kind of been my go-to verse for the past 3 years. which is the one thing I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that is to dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on his beauty and to inquire in his temple. And like that's a prayer of David, has been like my prayer for 3 years, and my hope that it's everybody else's prayer as well, because it's just so good to seek to know him. That same friend that shared that with me shared in Mark chapter 3, I think it's verse 14, where Jesus chooses his disciples. But what you notice is that Jesus chose the disciples that they might be with him, and then he gave them, and then he sent them out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the importance of spending time with him first before you go out to do any ministry stuff is vital, and Jesus modeled that with his small group, right? His group of lads. So yeah, the past 3 years have been learning and growing in that really.
I remember in first year when Mitch came to speak in our mission week, and he talked about a three-legged stool.
Yes.
Do you remember it? Right.
I do. Yeah.
What has been your experience of that in the past? Do you want to tell everyone about it? And what has been your experience of that, and how has that benefited you in the past few years?
Oh man, nice one. Great question. Um, Everyone come on this podcast because James will make you think. That's good. Um, yeah, Mitch came with this kind of illustration of the three-legged stool. So a stool with three legs, like you take one of the legs away, it's not going to stand, right? Or else it'll look all wonky and it'll not fulfill its purpose anyway. So 3 legs, he says, of any ministry is prayer, Bible study, and fellowship. So my experience of that, I loved that in the flat with like Christian guys, fellowship happened for us like naturally. You know, the Lord used you, he used the 2 Peters and John the first year, and then he used the apostles, James, Peter, and John there. And then the second year, of course, or third year, sorry, Reuben and Shane and Johnny as well, like fellowship and therefore accountability and seeking God came just naturally. And we'll have that in the committee as well. Like you and I serve in the committee together. And like it just yes, the CU committee. Yes, to clarify, the CU committee up at McKay. And so that was so important, that fellowship. And I know, man, I've been isolating here in Mexico for a week and a half. And like, I need people, I'm made for that. We're all made for community, whether we're introverts or extroverts. We do need to know people. We need to walk with people. Yes, Bible study. It goes without saying. You need to be hearing from the Lord. Or what's your ministry going to be about? Do you know what I mean? And then prayer, absolutely the fundamental. Like it's so important. If you're not seeking God in your own time, or if you're not seeking God with other people, or if you're not seeking God even as you study the Bible, then what's the point?
Yeah,
it's just either head knowledge or just a flippant disregard for what true community is, really. And so that's been my experience. Anyway, the past 3 years, I've been growing in that, being challenged by those 3 legs of the stool. And yeah, learning that if you stand too far one way in the stool, it might tip over. We had this wee stool in our house, and when I was wee, I was, when you just play with water, when you're a kid, it's just like you just splash about water, and it's the best crack ever. So I remember standing at the sink playing with a sink full of water, standing in the stool, and the stool like fell because it was leaning too far forward. And
Okay.
like as the stool fell, wee tiny Finnegan face planted the side of the sink and bust his lip. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like, like trying to learn balance in those three is just so important. You know, don't stand too far one end of the stool.
Mm.
So I mean, learning that throughout the 3 years has been good.
Yeah.
You know.
It really is about the balance, like, because it's so easy in your life just to lose one of those aspects in your journey with Christ, like. Um,
Yeah.
so you've graduated from university. Uh,
Mhm.
so what's the plan now? What are you going on to do?
Well, so I am an employee of Agape Ministries Limited. So Agape UK, they're kind of under the banner of Campus Crusade for Christ International. So I'm working for them, and then I'm going to be kind of on the staff team at West Virginia University, doing more student ministry, working with college students, meeting them at this crucial developmental stage in their life, and sharing the gospel with them
Mm.
as much as I can. And in that, then the Christian students who are already in the movement of crew there are like I'm going to be discipling a few lads and walking with them, journeying with them, challenging them, being challenged by them, learning from them.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of like I'm now in a full time ministry job. So that's what I'm doing in
Yeah.
America. So yeah, that's me. And then I'm also getting married.
Yeah.
Like, it's also like a full-time ministry as well. So it's going to be exciting. I'm really excited. I love Corey to bits, and I just can't wait to be walking alongside her now. So,
Yeah. No, that's cool. Um, what advice? So a lot of students, high school or whatever, or even people like us that have just graduated, they're about to transition into a new stage of life. Would you have any advice? Um, I know you'll be working with students, and this is certainly something that is uh, that we're going through at the minute. Um, is a transition, and that very often can't be isn't too easy. So, have you any advice for people like us?
man, uh,
Put me on the spot, like. I don't know why
yeah, that's
I'd
big.
answer this question.
Especially for let's start with high school students going into college. Um, get community and get community quick. Get solid Christian community, people who will love you for who you are, who will build you up, and people that you can grow with and be challenged by, um, and experience true vulnerability with. Right? You need that. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have had the incredible opportunities I've had up until this point. Um, so yeah, that's one bit of advice. The second, so this is yes, what I want to really drive home is look unto Jesus,
Yeah.
right? Hebrews 12:2 says, laying aside every weight and sin that clings so closely, looking unto Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, right? So lay aside all that stuff that doesn't help you run,
Okay.
right? So specifically for Christians, do you know what I mean? Like lay aside all the stuff that doesn't help you run to Jesus and run to Jesus, right? Like
So
look to Him.
like your sin, is that what? Um,
So yes, so Piper talks about this. He tries to define in answering the question, what is sin, or what's a sinful thing. There's so many things that are good in and of themselves, but because of our twisted and wretched souls, we make them sinful, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Um, So his answer is, look at that verse. The writer of Hebrews says, laying aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. So if you're about to do a 100-meter sprint, like, is the backpack, if you have a backpack on full of stones, is that going to help you run? Well, no, it's not. I mean, you'll run, but you'll struggle and you'll likely come last. So take it off. So anything that stops you or distracts you from your looking up to Jesus, then take it off. And actually, learn that the stuff you're struggling with now, and if you do take that off, there's got to be more stuff that comes up. So it's learning a posture of surrender more than anything before the Lord. So Leonard Ravenhill, an incredible preacher, another old dead dude. All those guys are really good. They always have lots to say. So Leonard Ravenhill, he's asked about recommendations for a book or something, and brings up this point that so a guy called Isaac Ambrose wrote a book called Looking Unto Jesus, and he says indeed Ambrose summed up the entirety of the Christian life with those three words that are from Hebrews. Looking unto Jesus. That's the point.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We can get caught up in, Lord, what are you calling me to do? Why are you calling me? I ask, why am I here studying drama? God, what was the point in that? But actually, it doesn't really matter where you find yourself, or if you're trying so hard to figure out what the sovereign will of God is. You're called to look to Jesus and to stay close to Him. That's what following Jesus is. It's following Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I've been thinking about that as well. When you started talking about looking unto Jesus with me, and it is just profound. Even those three words, that sums up faith. You look unto Jesus. That is what faith is. It sums up repentance. You turn away from sin and you look unto Jesus. That sums up our sanctification, our journey with Christ is just looking unto Jesus. It sums up our glorification, which is just looking unto Jesus, and it sums up eternity, which is looking unto Jesus. It's just profound. It's great.
Amen.
But yeah, it's awesome. Like, so, you're about to go into ministry or with Agape. Is there any prayer points or anything you'd like to share with all these people?
All these people, the people of Rathfriland 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah.
Please, folks, be praying that my heart and the heart of all, that the heart of the church would be to look unto Jesus. And that leaders would get people praying and get people looking unto Jesus in the secret place. That guy Ravenhill said, he says, the man that gets his church praying will usher in a revival, right? Pray for that to happen. Pray for hunger for God to happen, which I think is happening. There's movements that are happening in the States where people are just worshiping and coming back to the Lord and getting baptized left, right, centre, all around. A guy called Sean Foyt. So it's pretty cool. As he's kind of leading up this movement, Let Us Worship, it's called. Please pray for me. That my heart would be focused on that my heart would be open to learning new rhythms and new ways of life. That border control would open so that I could get into the States. That they'd be open to me coming in, that they won't suspect that I'm doing anything weird.
when this
Because
video,
I'm not.
you'll probably be there. So,
I probably will. Yes. Okay.
or else you'll be still in Mexico. I don't know.
Well, if I'm still in Mexico, pray that I can somehow, I don't know, get in the back of a lorry and get up into the States or something. um, I pray for Corey and I as we embark on this journey together, walking hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, looking to Jesus together. Pray for the team at West Virginia University. That, yeah, the student leaders would continue to show the initiative that they have been. Freshmen have been lining up and just to get involved in ministry stuff, which is incredible. We've had over 50 just sign up, and people are just coming. The women's Bible study had like 11 new freshmen just show up. And like things like that are happening all the time. So yes, I pray for Agape UK, Campus Crusade for Christ, kind of worldwide, and all student ministries, you know, that the same would happen, that God would just change people's hearts in these uncertain times, you know.
Well, it has been great to have you on, and I'm very thankful for our friendship, and that spiritual growth has been mutual, and we've both been included in each other's sanctification, which is great, and not always been on happy terms, like especially when dishes have been left.
Never by me, mate. Never by me.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, bro. Always a pleasure.